Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today I have a very special guest on for the first time, Susan Niebergall. Let me pull this up real quick. She is the author of Fit at Any Age. She's a personal trainer and strength coach and the host of the Strong and Lean at Any Age podcast. So Susan, thank you for coming on and looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, these are always fun, and it's also fun to have somebody new on to connect. And I don't know how many podcasts you typically do besides yours.
So I do mine and Jordan Syatt and I do one whenever, because I run the inner circle with him. And so when I go to travel and to Dallas where he is and we work on inner circle stuff, we always record one on his, one on mine. So that's the other regular one. It's interesting because I've been on a lot of podcasts fairly recently, just talking about menopausal kind of issue, all the things. I think that topic is becoming more and more prevalent as it should and all that. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of a wave going on with all of that now.
A lot of probably misinformation as well too. So I'm sure it's a lot of dispelling a lot of myths and
Oh yeah.
misinformation on your end.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool. Yeah, looking forward to chatting with you. And that's awesome. Yeah, Jordan Syatt, we had him on probably a couple years ago now at this point. So I'm sure a lot of people are super familiar with him. He's a great person in the fitness industry as well too. But just curious, if you don't mind, just kind of giving the audience, any new guests I bring on, I always like to kind of talk about your background. So just kind of curious, how did you get into fitness and what kind of led you to where you're at today?
Yeah. So I am 64 years old, been in the health and fitness industry for probably almost 20 years, I guess now, maybe 18. I don't know. I don't even keep track of that. It was in my 40s at some point. I come to fitness via education. I was a teacher, a music teacher, and then a school counselor. School counselor was the vast majority of my education career. And I retired a while ago. And it's so funny. I always say about around 8 years ago, my husband goes, no, it's going on 10. And I'm like, holy crap, where did that come from? So I can't believe it's been that long, but I've been retired from the school system for a while. And while I was in the school system, I got certified as a trainer, did some in-person training. Like I would go to school, after school, I'd go to this gym 2 times a week and train people for a few hours. And that's how I kind of started. But if you go back even before that, I've been in and out of gyms since probably the late 80s, maybe something like that. I did jazzercise at one point. I did a lot of group classes, aerobic classes, they called them back in the day, where, you're on a step a lot of times. And some of it was step, but some of it just used that. And, you got your heart rate up and then you ended with some weights and, a typical class. But the cool thing about that was it got me coming back. Right. The community that was built was so big and it was so much fun. I wasn't even thinking of it being fitness. I thought this was just kind of fun to do. A lot of hooping and hollering and all that kind of stuff. And then I would start noticing over in the free weight area, kind of trainers working with people. And I started getting really intrigued by that, decided to hire a trainer myself. And that's kind of how I started lifting, right? And lifting back in those days, very different than now. Maybe more circuity kind of stuff. Didn't do any of the power lifting kind of lifts or any Olympic lifting, anything like that. But just basic stuff, which was kind of fun. And I ended up absolutely loving it. And so I worked with trainers. I moved to a couple different gyms, worked out with different trainers. And frankly, I learned something from each one of them. They all brought something to the table, but one thing none of them really brought to the table was nutrition. They were just the trainer at the gym kind of thing, and always eat healthy, that kind of thing. And yet here I was pretty much overweight. I wasn't obese, but I had a good amount of weight to lose back in those days. And so I joined Jenny Craig. And for those that don't know, Jenny Craig is just kind of like a meal service weight loss thing where you eat their food, you will lose weight. And that's exactly what happened. I ate their food. I lost 50 pounds. And everyone's like, wow, that really worked. And it's like, well, no, because didn't learn anything while I was there other than I was hungry a lot. And knowing what I know now, and I look back on that, I'm thinking I was probably eating 1,000 calories, maybe 1,100 potentially. But I was hungry all the time. I didn't know how to maintain this. I didn't know how much I was eating, how much protein. I didn't know any of that because they never talked about that. So I ended up not being able to maintain the weight. Surprise, surprise. I, for the next several decades, I gained and lost increments of this 50 pounds, The typical story that you and I both hear from people out there, um, I just yo-yoed. Sometimes I would yo-yo a lot and gain a bunch. And then other times I would yo-yo and I wouldn't eat hardly anything. And of course I would lose weight, but I could never maintain this. So anyway, if you fast forward throughout, I struggled with that. I had
How,
times where I felt like, I'm sorry,
how long did that kind of go on for? That kind of back and
decades.
forth? Yeah.
I mean, if I got on Jenny Craig, I got married in 85. So shortly after that, I don't remember exactly when I started Jenny Craig, either late 80s, early 90s, but I think late 80s. So from that point to 10 years ago, 30 some years, maybe 40. It was a lot. It was a lot. Just yo-yoing, having periods where I could fit into one group of clothes in my closet, having periods where I fit into the other group of clothes in my closet, and always being afraid, when the seasons start to change, I have to put on jeans. Are they going to fit me this year? You know, that was a real fear, is putting on jeans. And then when you get into the summer months, do I want to put on a pair of shorts? Are they going to fit me? I went through the whole thing. And all of this just went on and on and on until it was maybe when I was at 50. I remember going into my bathroom one day and just looking down at myself. I'm like, what has happened to me? I saw this belly fat I'd never really noticed before. It felt like it came on overnight. Of course, it didn't, but it felt like it did. And I was devastated because at that point, I had been certified by to be a trainer. And I'm thinking, I should not be looking like this. I was mortified, humiliated, all the rest. And then I started thinking, oh my God, this must be menopause. I get it. Oh, okay. My metabolism is probably slow. That's what I've heard. And, all those things. So I said, well, I'm just going to go to the doctor, get the blood work done, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to, she's going to find out my thyroid's messed up or my metabolism's bad. But I'm going to get the medication. And then I'm just going to be off and running because I'm already eating very clean and I'm eating very healthy. All those little buzzwords. I was that person, and the doctor came back and said, "No, your blood works just fine. You don't need any medication." And then she looked at me. She goes, "If you want to lose weight, you need to eat less than what you're doing right now." And I'm like, "What?" I thought she was full of crap. I really didn't want to believe it when I should have been really happy because I'm now not a victim to some condition, right? I control all of this. And while that is a great empowering thing, it was also very scary for someone who thought she was already doing everything right, by eating clean and eating, quote, healthy. I was just eating a whole lot of it and not being able to understand how to reduce this a little bit to lose weight and maintain it and all the things. I just didn't know. So I started I had to let that sit. It sat with me for a while. And then I just started making small changes. I didn't track anything. I didn't do anything like that. I just made small changes with quantity. Right. And so, yeah, I started seeing small changes as a result of my small changes. And so then in my head, I'm like, oh, I have all this figured out. And I really didn't. But I was on the right path. Then I hired Jordan in my early to mid 50s to be my online strength coach because I thought I wanted to power lift at that point. And everyone said, he's the guy you have to hire. So I hired him and I didn't go to him for nutrition, but I did join his inner circle. I did apply all the nutrition guidelines that he put in there every month that we still use to this day. And all of a sudden, everything changed. He and I started talking about nutrition more. I read everything he wrote, watched everything he put out, and everything changed. Not only how I looked, how I felt, my workouts went through the roof. I was building muscle like crazy. And I'm like, oh, everything started to fit. I finally started to understand all these things that I didn't get for decades. I finally got. And what I found interesting was, I have genetics on my side, my dad's side, that's not in my favor. A lot of health issues, which I'm fighting all the time, right? And all these things that could keep me from potentially being where I'm at today. I'm like, you know what? I'm no one special, but I am someone who decided to make a change and work hard. And that's the difference. And so now I feel like my mantra, my message out there is just that it's never too late to change. I'm not gifted. I'm not a gifted athlete or anything like that. I just made changes and held myself responsible and accountable and decided to be consistent with what I was doing. And lo and behold, that worked. And I was in my mid 50s. So if I can do it, anybody can do this. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it and doing it. And so that's kind of the message I want to get out to everybody. And that's why I named my book Fit at Any Age and subtitle It's Never Too Late. Because really, that's truly it.
No, I mean, I think that's awesome because, like you said, a lot of times people will think that it's too late, and then they end up not doing
Yeah.
it, and it super important. So it sounds like for you, it's like you always were kind of into fitness and nutrition, but you never, I guess, kind of put everything together. What do you feel like were kind of the big things from like a training and nutrition standpoint? That really helped you. I know you said that like some of it was just eating less, staying consistent with it, but was there anything else specific that maybe you felt like you were like doing wrong during that time, or anything like that throughout your
Well, I never felt like I was on top of nutrition ever
yeah.
until I got into my 50s, ever. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was the person in our school office, we would celebrate birthdays. Everybody would take turns bringing in something for somebody's birthday, and I would always decline having the cupcake or having the piece of cake and all of these things. And I wrote about this in my book, and I said, I'm in these office celebrations, always declining the cake. Even on my own birthday, one time I did that, which was, I look back on that and I'm mortified that that ever happened. And then I would have people there going, "Oh my God, Susan, you're so disciplined." Like it was this badge of honor.
Right.
And they pumped it up so much. And of course, it's feeding inside of me like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. But inside, I'm like, but I want to be like you. I want to be able to enjoy that piece of cake because I want that piece of cake. I want to be able to have a piece of cake and not feel bad about it, not feel like I've ruined all my progress. So my relationship with food there was, I mean, it was distorted, right? I was never a binge eater or anything like that. I just had a distorted view of reality regarding, nutrition. And that's from all the crap that my generation grew up with. I mean, it's so much crap over the years. And then, the working out piece, when I went to Jordan, I was the workout girl that would work out 6 to 7 days a week. And for a while, 2-a-days. And those 2-a-days were not cardio and lifting. They were 2 lifting sessions a day. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. And I told everyone, "Oh my God, I just love this. It's And I did. I mean, I did like to do it, but I did it out of fear. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so obvious. I was too afraid not to do it because if I didn't do it, going to gain fat. I'm going to lose progress. I'm not going to make any progress, blah, 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 blah. When the reality was I was making no progress, right? I'm always getting nicked up, little injury, these little things, never really moved more weight. I was tired all the time. My sleep was trash, all the things. And so Jordan scaled me back to 4 days a week, and I thought I was going to lose my mind right out of the gate. And I'm texting him saying, "What the hell am I supposed to do on a day off?" He's like, take a day off and not do anything. So I had to learn the hard way to trust that process. And that was really hard, by the way, really hard because I had convinced myself I had to work like that. And what I didn't understand was I don't need more workouts. I need to make the workouts I had more effective. Right. And I think I was messaging with a woman today about this very question. It's more is not better when it comes to lifting. It's just not. It's making what you're doing more effective. That may mean improving your technique. That may mean moving more weight, whatever it is. And you have to do it. And then you need to give your body time to recover. And what that does, what I found it does, it improves your relationship with exercise, right? You're now not working out of fear anymore. You're working out because you want to better yourself. You want to better your health and do all that. Your relationship with exercise is completely separate from food. And now it's a positive thing. It's not like punishment. It's not like, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose progress kind of thing. And when you allow your body to rest, your next workout is so much more effective because your body can handle more, can do more because you've allowed it to rest. And I think people just get it in their head I mean, I was that girl, so I understand that. But that, I mean, when I realized that after starting to work with Jordan, that was a huge turning point for my workouts. And I've never looked back from that. I'm all about rest days now. And as I've gotten older, I mean, that was 10 years ago. And 10 years is a lot of time. Like, I'm very different now than I was 10 years ago. I rest more now than I did then, even. Just because if I want to keep doing this, I've got to be realistic. In my head, would I like to be like I was 10 years ago? 100% I would, but I'm not. So I have to kind of, we have to adapt as we get older. I'm still on a schedule. It's been a crazy schedule the last couple years, but yeah, I mean, you kind of take what life throws at you, and you kind of work around everything. But I think scaling back workouts to a doable amount was a huge turning point for me.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there about the fear aspect of it, right? I do find that a lot of people diet and work out, like you said, out of fear more so than like how it makes your body feel. I think that's super important to change that mindset from that, right? It's not an easy thing, but if you can do that, it is a game changer. I mean, it's I feel like it was the same for me as well too, right? Where I felt like if I skip the workouts, like I'm gonna lose all this muscle, and it's like now that I know more, it's just like that was the dumbest thing to think,
Yeah.
again, like you said, the quality is super important. And yeah, just getting away from that fear base around it is just super important.
I had somebody when I was messaging about this topic, she asked me, she does a push pull leg split 3 times a week. She wanted to do that split twice
Yeah,
through
six
in
days.
1 week.
Yeah.
And is that too much? I'm like, "Why you shouldn't even need to there's no need to do that." What that tells me is you haven't been working hard enough on your original push pull legs, because
Yeah.
there's absolutely no reason for it. And if you feel like you could handle it easily, well then, you know, you certainly haven't worked very hard.
Well, and you know, you kind of alluded to this as well too about like the sleep and everything like that. Do you find that for a lot of people that are in that kind of cycle too, it's like one of the main things they can work on is probably improving their lifestyle as well, and a lot of people that kind of have that fear base around like not working out enough. It's like they have kind of low hanging fruit when it comes to things like sleep, stress management, nutrition.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sleep is one of these things that over the last 10 years is something that I've rediscovered, maybe. Because for a while there, and back when I was starting my online business, the whole thing was grind, grind,
Yeah.
grind, 24 hours a day, grind, get hardly any sleep, work, 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 work. It was kind of glamorized almost, that and a bunch of us would joke that we should get online and chat at 2 in the morning because we're all up, right? I mean, and I look back on that, I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I survived that, that's for sure." But yeah, sleep has been a game changer. And I think every year I get older, I feel like it is a bigger player than it was the year before. I mean, it just keeps getting to be a big player, because when I have a good night's sleep, like I can tell. I don't track my sleep because I don't need a watch to tell me when I wake up if I slept like shit. I know I did,
Yeah.
right? So then I got to figure out why that was, and maybe work on changing that or whatever. But when I have a good night's sleep, I feel like everything is better. My nutrition feels good. My workouts are completely different. And I know life throws us curveballs. We're not going to have a perfect night's sleep every single night, and it's just a matter of realizing maybe things that we can control with that, things that we can't control with that. And, we're all a work in progress, with sleep, I think.
Yeah, right. And I think the big thing is just like you said, prioritizing it and working on those things. But I
Yeah.
guess what are some things that maybe work for you and maybe work for your clients? Yeah, from a sleep perspective.
A lot of basic stuff. Like I wind down now. I'm back in my bedroom by 8:30. Now, I don't go to bed at 8:30, but I have first of all, I shut work down. I never used to do that. I don't check emails and stuff after dinner. I just don't do it anymore. And I will be back in my bedroom. I have this little ritual. We have two cats, so I kind of take care of them, give them their food, blah 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 blah, and then I get back to the bedroom, and I do a little mobility thing every night for my hip and some just my shoulders. So I do that. Got some TV on, whatever. I'm winding it down. So that's part one. And then I get actually in bed, and I'm not One thing I'm trying to do is maybe read a little bit at night, but my brain, it has to shut down, and reading, I don't know. That's not working for me right now. So I'm trying to work in reading another way, but um I'll just put on some mindless TV, nothing that I have to focus on plot, nothing that's scary, just whatever. And 30, 40 minutes of that. I try to have the lights out around 10 kind of thing. So it's just having a ritual at night, whatever that is, it's gonna be different for every person. I feel like, I have to watch caffeine intake after a certain time. Some people, I'm envious of those people, can have coffee whenever they want, and it's fine. I can't. I've got to stop by like 3:30, 4 o'clock. So things like it, just basic stuff, I like my room a little colder. I feel like I'm more comfortable, especially middle-aged woman. You're probably going to want to much cooler than anybody else. So I think things like that and being aware of that, making sure it's dark, that just little basic stuff like that has always worked for me.
Yeah, yeah, and it seems like, hey, just prioritizing it. But the big thing again is also just you said kind of cutting off work. That's a big thing that I kind of see. People do is they're still kind of like
Yeah.
focused on work or checking their email or whatever, and
Yep.
then you get that one email that maybe kind of increases your anxiety, and now you're up, and it kind of ruins that whole routine. So having that routine around
Oh my
sleep.
God, that was me. That was exactly what would happen to me. I would see an email, like I do the inner circle email, and I would see an inner circle email, and I want to answer the question right
Yep.
then and there. I want to answer it so I can just go to bed and not worry about it. And I've stopped doing that. I mean, I'm trying to stop doing that because it's keeping me up longer. I'm keeping my mind going. That's the problem, right? The mind starts going, and it's hard to shut that off.
Well, and you can see too where obviously email, but today's world, what social media too, right? Especially if you're somebody like yourself who has a lot of followers, you never know who's going to be, coming across that. And again, it's
Yeah.
just seeing things that maybe not you in particular, but just people that are listening to this, seeing something that you don't agree with, or something that gets you upset. Again, be careful with things like that. Before bed too. I think
You
it's
know,
just
it was interesting because my social media has been, it's interesting. Everybody's social media kind of ebbs and flows, within the
the
algorithm, whatever
algorithm. Yeah.
that even is, all the stupid stuff, which I don't even care about anymore. One thing that has come out of social media is, a couple TV shows have found me because of social
Awesome.
media. I was on Good Morning America a couple years ago, and they found me from using some hashtag. I don't even remember what it was. And I remember seeing the notification from them and then the email from them. And, so in the back of my head is I need to keep checking because I don't know who's watching this. I don't know. I don't want to miss an opportunity, whatever. But so it's a blessing and a curse in some ways too. Always I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I'm not a techie. Like I don't know the ins and outs of some of these things at all. So what would take me an hour to do will take someone like you probably 5 minutes. I mean, it's just how it is. And at this point in my life, I'm not sure that I really want to learn all that.
I'll have to say you got very good social media following, right? That's awesome. Has that always kind of been that way, or did it kind of come up at?
No, I mean, I've been doing this for years and years, and one thing that Jordan helped me with early on was the regularity of posting and
Yeah.
trying to make content that's helpful for people. And I hopped on back in the infographic days where
Oh yeah.
those were just like you put up infographics, and if they're halfway decent, man, you got a lot of followers very quickly. And so I think the base of my account was built from that, just doing infographics. And then for me, learning how to make them I can't even begin to tell you what that was like for me trying to do that. And so it was always a work in progress. It started with stick figures and we graduated to learning to include. I mean, it was what it was. But that kind of thing was back in the Instagram growth days, right? When people grew a lot faster than people grow now. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot faster. And reels weren't a thing back then. It was mostly pictures. And so in some ways it was a little easier
I was
because
gonna
now
say.
there's so many things, right? Um, but I've still noticed even through all of the social media stuff, I mean, with Instagram, that my growth is slow, but it's kind of steady,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't grow as fast. I'm trying different things now that I know how to do one or two things. I'm trying different things and seeing if something does better, like I'm doing a little more video-y kind of thing right now. And that seems to be better. Before it was tweet posts were doing really, really well. And before that, it was carousel posts that were doing really well. And by doing well, I mean more people were able to see it.
Yep.
That's my version of doing well. I really don't care how many people like it. I just want it to be seen in case it can help somebody, you know? I mean, so yeah, the whole social media thing just makes me nauseous, to be honest.
It's yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, man, you can go down some rabbit holes with it.
Oh
Like you
yeah.
said, you kind of have your frame of reference of like what you're kind of shooting for, and I think that's great. I think that's super important to have that. For you, it's like, hey, I just want people to see it. I don't care if they like it or not.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously your stuff's great. I think no matter what, even if it was easier to grow back then, I mean, to get the type of following you're at, you obviously have good content. And so again, I think that's a tribute to the content that you have. So
Thank you. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
definitely keep that up because it is tough, and we need good information out there, especially when it comes to fitness and nutrition. I did want to kind of touch base real quick to go back to the yo-yoing. For you, then you may have kind of hit on it, throughout. But what do you feel like was the most helpful thing to kind of help you break through that, kind of yo-yoing back and forth?
You know, I think when I hired Jordan, everything changed because he is just one of these people that makes sense. It's kind of no BS kind of stuff and it's uncomplicated. And I, like many others, tried to complicate everything. Like I needed to do this special diet or I had to try this special thing. And really, it's none of that. It's basic stuff that you do over and over and over and over and over again. And that stuff's not sexy. It doesn't sell like other things, but it's what works. And so that being around the right people, meaning, him as my coach. And by the way, he still is my coach. I mean, he still writes all of my programming. We've been through hip replacement together, the whole thing. And trusting somebody and then holding myself responsible. Man, that is something that so many people just aren't doing. And this is where the kind of my tough love piece comes in because I feel like that's a big problem. And people say, I'm doing everything right and blah, blah, blah. And, after talking to them for about 10 minutes, you figure out, no, there's a lot of room for improvement here. And let's look at what we can improve and hold your feet to the fire. And while I understand that can be scary for people, especially in my age range. Man, change is hard, especially when you've gone through decades of thinking the one thing, and then you get here and someone's telling you, no, it's not really like that at all. You need to trust me. And now it's like this. Man, people just don't, you don't walk into a room and flip that switch from on, to off or off to on. It's not that easy. It is a repetitive process. It's talking to yourself. It's holding your feet to the fire. It's a lot of things, but it takes time, right? And you have to be willing to practice that. It's a skill, and you have to be willing to practice. And so I was willing to practice. And honestly, that's kind of the changeover. I surrounded myself with the right person, and then by extension, other people as well. And yeah, I held my feet to the fire. It's basic. It doesn't sound like this great story. There wasn't the aha, this is the trick or the tip that worked for me. No, it was the boring old, you do this repeatedly, you make mistakes. Okay, cool. You just get yourself back up and get on that horse and keep on going.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like you said, just kind of being honest with yourself. Like you
Yeah.
said, putting yourself around, the right people was helpful. But again, there wasn't really one magic thing that happened. It was just, hey, you were honest with yourself and consistent with it. And you just kept going and learned from your mistakes.
Do you find that the honesty piece is a big issue? Or do you run into that a lot with people? And the honesty, not from the point of they're lying to you, but in their own head.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I feel like for sure. Just for example, because this happens regularly. The two that come to mind for me are around sleep and tracking calories. Tracking your food. If somebody is not seeing the weight loss that they want to see or whatever it may be, it's like, hey, I'm doing all the things. And then you kind of, I do what I like to call like an energy audit, right? Where I'm like kind of like diving into, hey, are you adherent? Is there maybe some snacks or grazing? Is there like serving sizes? And it's usually like, I'm doing all the thing, I'm tracking everything. And that's like the prime example of like, look, I'm not like saying you're not trying hard or you're lying to me about anything. It's just, hey, this is the honest fact that tracking calories is a skill, and it's not 100% accurate. And there's some things that you could easily be overlooking. And I feel like sometimes that's like the main one that just kind of comes to mind as an example of that
Yeah.
specifically.
I mean, I see that exact same thing. And a lot of times I'll tell people who feel like they're doing everything is, I've done this recently with several people. I say, okay, so give yourself this 30-day challenge. For 30 days in a row, you are 100% consistent. with hitting a calorie range, your protein, your fiber, 100%. So that means you're not going out to eat because you don't know. You cannot be 100% consistent and know. So it's a little bit of a sacrifice for this 30 days but what this 30 days is supposed to do is open your eyes to areas, I call them loopholes, that have been getting in your way from making progress and that you can now be more aware of moving forward. It's not about how much weight you can lose in a month. That's pretty much irrelevant. It's more about what areas can you keep focusing on after the 30 days where you're not 100%, but you still are aware of these areas that were trouble spots for you and probably keeping you from making progress. But now that you're aware of them, now that you can manage them, that's the whole goal. And I've never met anyone who has done that, who hasn't come out of there going, oh my God, was that eye-opening?
Yeah, no, like you said, again, it helps you be more aware of it in the future, and that's really what we're trying to do, right? But for
Yeah.
whatever reason, when it comes to like the calories like that, it just is like a big like I'm tracking everything, I'm doing everything, and it's like again, I'm just letting you know these are potential things that are easy to overlook, and like you said, just making you more aware of it is super important. So cool. No, I love that. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about here is, and this is part of your journey as well, is your hip injury recovery. So I believe you had hip replacement surgery, correct, recently? Or
6
was
months
that
ago.
6 months
Actually,
ago?
6 months ago, almost to the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so how was that? What kind of happened there? What was the process around all that?
Yeah, my hip was just hurting for years. And I went to see a lot of physios, and I have a movement doc up here, and we worked our way through as best we could for a long time. And it was just getting worse and worse. Finally got an x-ray, and yeah, the doc said, yeah, you've got arthritis. Here's what it looks like. Showed me. Also, with arthritis can come bone spurs where your body creates extra bone. That's part of what your body does to try to defend itself, I guess, from arthritis. And my bone spur added to the fun because it was shaped like a hook. Most bone spurs are just like a stub. Mine was a pointy little hook, and you really had to search for it on the x-ray, but it was fascinating to see because so much of my pain revolved around that thing. And they said they could go in and shave it off, but it's going to come back with a vengeance. That's not the long-term cure, right? That's why they rarely ever will do that if arthritis is at play. So anyway, they wanted me to wait to have surgery because of my age. One doc told me, you're only going to get, with your level of activity, you're probably only going to get 10 years out of a hip, and then you're going to need a new one. And while the hip replacement surgery really is a smooth surgery these days, it's not as big of a deal as maybe it was years and years ago. But when you have to replace a replacement, that's significant. That surgery is really extensive because they now have to take out of your bone the replacement that your bone is grown around and then put a new one in. That's a big deal. And so I got a couple opinions. I actually went to Washington Redskins training camp. Well, Commanders, whatever. I'm a football girl. Redskins training camp, and met with their ortho. And I got a kind of a consult for free. I showed him my x-ray, and we talked through it, and he goes, you're going to be fine. And he told me all these people he's treated, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he pumped me up with a bunch of information, went back to the doc, and I said, I don't want to wait. My quality of life right now stinks as a result of this. I'm in pain all the time. I want to enjoy things now. I don't want to suffer for years now so that when I'm 80, I'll start this process. No. And they all supported me. We actually tried a shot, an injection, a guided injection. I got 2 days of relief. And at that point, my doc said, okay, if you got 2 days of relief, that confirms that your issue is arthritis, and there's nothing else we can do for you. So let's schedule surgery. So anyway, scheduled surgery, knowing that surgery was coming. Jordan and I sat down, talked about my programming, and I decided my goal moving forward was to get my hip as strong and stable as I possibly could going into surgery. And so for about a year, all my leg days were single leg exercises for like a year.
So you knew that far in advance that you were going to.
I knew surgery was coming, yeah, because arthritis doesn't get better.
Right.
It just gets worse. And I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when, right? And so when I figured out I'm going to be having surgery, that's when we decided, okay, let's just start this. And I literally started with no weight. And I could move weight. It wasn't that I couldn't, but I wanted to build this right from the ground, literally from the ground floor. So for about a year, all my leg workouts were single leg. I made a lot of progress, and it hurt a lot, especially towards the end. And I talked with some docs and PTs about this, and I just said, look, I am never one to push through pain, but here's what I want to do. I want to build as much strength and stability. I feel like I need to push through some pain to do it. And I want to make sure that that's not a dumb idea. And they said, no, it's not dumb at all. You're just going to have to suck up the pain. You're not going to make anything worse because we're taking out the bum, you know? So it's just about my tolerance. Right. And so I tolerated a lot because sometimes the next day it would be hard to move.
Yeah.
But I get to surgery day and my recovery has been the easiest thing I think I've done. You know, I was walking, as is everybody, right away, but I've had no pain at all, just stiffness in my hip, which is to be expected. And I have just been continuously making progress, little bit by little bit. Nothing's really gone wrong. I've been out of jujitsu for a while. That is the one thing that I'm a little nervous about getting back to. I've done 1 or 2 privates and we're just like baby stepping it because I'm a little nervous about that. Probably won't spar if ever, but if I do, it's going to be a long time because that's so uncontrolled. I don't know if that's worth it to me. But lifting back in the gym, Jordan has reprogrammed my stuff now. So now I'm doing upper split, 4 days, 2 leg days, got all kinds of stuff. Still a lot of single leg stuff because I'm still building strength and stability back, but I'm back to deadlifting again. I'm squatting again. I never thought that day would ever happen. So it's just been great. It's such an indication of what you put in. Like I was in a great position because I knew what was coming and I made up my mind to do this a certain way. And it worked perfectly. And if I should ever have another hip replacement, I would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, make sure you're in a good spot heading into it. What was, I guess I guess how long did it kind of take for you post surgery to kind of get back into like your kind of where you're at
Um,
now?
I was doing quarter squats day 3. I mean,
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm holding on to my kitchen sink, right?
Right.
And just doing that. And I'm walking without a cane by then. It didn't take, I moved light years compared to an average person, according to my doctor. But I don't think I was the average person going in either. I mean, I had really worked hard going into surgery. But I think I was going to say, Jordan wrote this program for me. I've been on this program for a couple months now. I'm ready probably to move on. But I would say probably month 3, 4, I was deadlifting, I was squatting the bar and literally just box squatting at first. And then I would slowly progress to just squatting full range of motion, which I haven't done in years.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to load that, and squats are going to be that's going to be a tough one to load and see the progress. Deadlifts have come back pretty quickly. That squatting and single leg RDLs have been really hard for me. Single leg RDLs were like a wall. I could just barely move. And now I've got full range. Now I'm using decent weight. I mean, it was just one of these things. It's almost like having newbie gains, right? When you start from nothing and you see the gains coming. I mean, I have to keep telling myself I am on month 6 of recovery. That's it.
Yeah. It's not like it was that long ago. 6 months is,
No, it wasn't that long ago. It seemed to me, I'm starting to feel like it seems like forever ago. And the newbie gains has definitely slowed down.
yeah.
I get that. It was great while it lasted. And it was newbie gains for upper body too. This has been the interesting part. I never realized how much my upper body workout suffered. I mean, this whole hip pain thing just destroyed my confidence. I mean, destroyed it, not only from the gym point of view, but from life point of view.
Yeah.
Wasn't confident in anything. And I look back on that now and I'm like, wow, I had no idea when I was going through it. And I
Yeah.
look back now and I'm just like a different person.
Yeah. So it was also, so it sounds like the newbie gains was kind of from like the fact that leading up to it, you weren't able to like train as hard as you typically were, as you were. And then now that you're back into it, you kind of saw
Yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of go off cards.
absolutely. And upper body too, which is the most fascinating kind of connection. Like there were times where I couldn't lay on a bench to do a bench press because my hip could not be in that position.
Yeah.
Like it hurt too much. So I would either not do it, go to an incline where my hip's not so extended, or get to a machine. Or I mean, I had to play around with stuff like that all the time. Weight felt heavy. I mean, everything felt heavy. Yeah, it was a bit discouraging, but newbie gains everywhere from day one, starting from nothing. I think rebuilding something is about the most fun anyone should have in the gym. I mean, that's just like the best.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, but again, I think the fact that you take care of your health, you
Yeah.
exercise leading up to it. I think that definitely helped with your recovery. And I mean,
Oh my,
six months post surgery, you're back to doing most of the stuff, which is awesome. Considering like you said, 6 months really isn't that much time with it. What was kind of your focus from like a nutrition standpoint? Was it just to make sure you fueled your body? Was there anything like specific you kind of worked on throughout this period of time from a nutrition standpoint?
nothing specific. I've been in maintenance for years. Like I haven't tracked anything in so long. So I didn't change anything. I knew it was not the time to try to be in a deficit,
Yeah.
whether I tracked it or not. Recovering from surgery is not the time to do that. Even though people are scared of not being as active and all the things. And I understand that. I had a little pang of that too. I mean, we're human. I get that. But I also know that that's not going to help me recover. Right. So I didn't change how I ate. I mean, my appetite I had to work that back up. Right. Because, I was just sluggish and I was exhausted the first like 3 or 4 days after surgery. But aside from that, I didn't change anything. I ate the same breakfast. I ate the same kind of lunches. I just did my thing because that's where I felt my best.
Yep, like you said, definitely not the time to be in a deficit. Like you said, it's tempting to do that, but that's only going to kind
Yeah.
of slow down that recovery aspect of it. Do you have like maybe one or two like lessons learned from this hip injury and hip replacement surgery that you would like to share?
I'll tell you, if anyone out there feels like they're going to be having that kind of surgery, get as strong as you can now. I mean, that's the big takeaway. Do whatever you can to get that joint and surrounding muscles as strong and stable as humanly possible before you go into surgery, because that will save you in recovery. I think it'll make all the difference in the world. I was telling somebody the other day, I've had within the last week a colonoscopy and a skin cancer removal on my shin, which is not a fun place to have it because there's no skin there, right? So those two things back to back days too. I was an idiot to schedule that. Those two were 10 times harder than my hip replacement recovery ever was. And people were like, really? So I would have my other hip done in 2 seconds. Then I don't want to do another colonoscopy. Unfortunately, I have to keep having them. But yeah, I would rather do that. And I think because my experience was relatively easy, not easy, but easier than most because of what I did prior. And so it's all about the work that you put in before your surgery. And that will make the difference on the other side.
People's kind of thought around that's the opposite, right? Where it's like, okay, once I get the surgery, then I'm going to get
Yeah.
into it, right? They kind
Yeah.
of hold it off from that perspective. So you're kind of saying there, hey, do what you can beforehand, and that's only going to kind of speed up that
Great point,
recovery.
because I think you're 100% right. I think people, yeah, they're in pain and they don't wanna make it worse and whatever, and my thought was, "Okay, I'll suck it up now, and, it'll be better on the other side."
Well, and I think too, obviously the fact that you were active before that and lifting weights definitely helped,
Yeah.
for sure. So I think really the moral of the story is lift weights as soon as you can, basically.
Yeah, right? Amen to that. Amen to that, whether you're having surgery or not.
Right. Cool. Well, I want to talk to you, I guess, real quick before we dive into this. Is there anything else that you're working on from like a training nutrition perspective at this point? Now, is it just to stay strong, as you age, or is there anything like specific there that you're?
I'm training, I'm still in, I don't wanna say rehab mode, but I sorta am. I'm still working to get back to maybe where I was
Yeah.
years ago, and I don't think, to be honest, I'm ever gonna fully get back there, and I'm okay with that, but I like to work towards that.
Yeah.
That helps keep me driven a little bit. Um, I want deadlifts to feel comfortable again. They don't feel super, super comfortable yet. I'm moving like almost 200 pounds now, which is crazy, but they don't feel, I'm just because I haven't done them in so long and I'm working through all of that. So I'm continuing to work on that. But I always give myself training goals in every program I have. And when I first started working with Jordan, my first training goal was I want to do a chin up. I hadn't was that girl that could never do any of that. And so I finally got a chin up, and then it became I want to do 10, and I could do 10. And then it became I want to do weighted. And I kept working through all that. And then I did a weighted chin up with a 45-pound weight on me. You
Wow.
know, that was several years ago. I want to get back to that. So that's a training goal I have, is getting back to the 45-pound weighted chin up. I have a goal of rowing a 100-pound dumbbell, and I'm knocking on that door. Um, that I got newbie gains on that really well after surgery. And now I'm kind of like, okay, now it's the hard stuff. Yeah. And I want to get back to 225. I want to be able to deadlift 225 again. I feel like that was kind of a big place for me to reach originally. So I want to try to get back there. Um, yeah, and I want to work on my overhead press. I really want to work on my dumbbell bench press. I've given up bench pressing with a bar anymore. My shoulders just don't like that. So, I give myself these goals. Like I want to grab the pair of 50s again and be able to bench press with 50s. They're just goals for me. They mean something to me. But what's fun about that is it makes my training sessions a little bit different. Like I'm working for something specific, not just because I want to build muscle and get strong, because we all want to do that. But I have something very specific, and they're just specific to me. But it makes my training a little bit more intense. I'm bringing more effort, more intensity to it. And honestly, it just makes it more fun.
I like that. Yeah, it's not like you said, we all want to build muscle and build strength, but for you, it's like you actually have these specific training goals,
Yeah.
certain metrics you want to hit, which I think is great. It keeps, like you said, keeps your training super fresh and engaging. Which
Yeah.
if we can do that, we stay at it longer. Most important aspect of it. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, I do want to bring up your book. So you wrote the book Fit at Any Age. I think it's awesome. So I guess just to what was the reason you wanted to write the book? What were some things that maybe you saw that you felt like it was important that you got this book out there?
Well, I kind of thought, what I went through for decades with the weight loss and Jenny Craig and all the fads and blah, blah, blah. Said, I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only person. And I used to believe all of this stuff that we all went through, and we, meaning people in my age bracket, we all went through it. And I came out the other side. And if I can do this, anybody can do this. So let me share my story on all the mistakes I made, all the stupid diet things that I tried, the things that I believed, and then how did I change all of that in my mid 50s and then continue to be successful with that, and how that affected my business, my life as an educator, all of that. And just to show everybody that, look, you can do this too. And the biggest thing I've gotten back from people who have read that book said, this could have been me. It's everybody's story. I'm not unique. I'm not different. I'm just this person that maybe a lot of people can relate to, who struggled with everything, that we all did back then. And I came through it, and I had to work hard to do it, but I could do it. And this is how I did it. And just showing everybody this could be a roadmap for you too.
Awesome. Yeah. So kind of your story,
Yeah.
and then show people, hey, you can get started. Who would you say it's like mostly for? I mean, I'm assuming you kind of just mentioned it there, but like, is it kind of that person you're just kind of mentioning there? Is there anyone else you think the book could kind of be for, or anything like that?
It's interesting. A lot of people, middle-aged women for sure, right? Because I think they're the ones that will be able to relate to so many of the dumb things that I did and we all did together. Um, but I think I've had younger people tell me that it's been meaningful for them too, which is fabulous actually, because man, why not hop on this bandwagon now as a 30-year-old as opposed to waiting until you're 50 or whatever? And then they also say, I bought this book and gave it to my mom as well,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And that I love too, because their moms, the comments I get back are, finally, somebody my age gets it. I think so many women, middle-aged women, see the fitness industry with a lot of younger people, which is fine. But I think they like having somebody who's been through it, and who lived through it and struggled just like they did. And there's something to be said for that. I will say, however, that because somebody is younger doesn't mean that they can't be helpful with, a middle-aged population. And I need to be really clear about that because I feel like it can go a little bit too much that way, right? Automatically, somebody who's younger gets discounted because they're not 50 some years old or more. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. But I think for them, just especially if they're intimidated by fitness, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to start, all those things. To see somebody in their 60s who was able to change it at such a late age is kind of encouraging, right? And it's pretty realistic, all the things that I talk about in there. I mean, there's no magic pill either, but it's all the stuff. It's kind of nostalgic in some ways because they go back and go, oh my God, yeah, I did that too. What were we thinking? you know?
Yeah, like you said, he's kind of like that generation in terms of, kind of, again, like you said, just the kind of diet culture, eat less,
Yeah.
which is a good thing, but, again, that gets taken to the extreme. So, having somebody that's actually gone through it, I think is super helpful there.
Yeah.
Was there anything like, as you were like writing the book or, I don't know how much like research you kind of did like throughout this, but was there anything like interesting that you learned that you didn't think you were going to find or any kind of interesting findings from that standpoint?
It's interesting when you write your own story, there's not a ton of research. I had to do some research because I couldn't remember the names of things back in the day. That was challenging. Remember, and this is just another thing about being this age, right? Um, Remembering details from 40 years ago
Not easy.
is like, man, what do you do? Because you can't just write a sentence about something and then be done with it. People want details and a book needs to have details. And so that was really challenging. So I talked to relatives. I went through old photos, things just to trigger, memories and stuff. And it was a process. As I thought of things, I made this big map. Like I had a coach that helped me through getting organized to write a book because I'd never done it before. And one of the things she had me do is one of those mind map things. And so just plop down little things as they popped in my head that would be interesting, maybe to consider including. And I even had to go back to the jazzercise thing I mentioned earlier. I started with jazzercise. I remember the setting I took it in. I don't remember who the instructor was. I couldn't remember much about it, except it happened in a church downstairs. We had to set up all the stuff. We had to move the chairs, the whole thing. And I remember thinking back then, this is kind of, I don't know if this is my thing, but I did it anyway. And then that led to other things, but just getting enough detail writing this book was really difficult. And I have another one that I would like to write, which would not be a memoir. It's more kind of almost like a little handbook for middle-aged women. That I think would be easier to write because I've already written most of it via content or something, it's just now with that would be how I want to organize it in a kind of a user-friendly, geared towards having it really simple and, that kind of thing. So if I do the second one, I'm thinking that one will be a little bit easier, even though telling your story is easy, but the detailed piece from way back in the day, I didn't take notes back then, so I don't know.
Yeah, you probably didn't think you were going to be writing a book and
Yeah,
stuff. So
yeah, like, yeah,
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, right? This is more kind of your story and everything. So like you said, it was more so just remembering a lot of the stuff that you
yeah,
went through. But again, yeah, so fit at any age, it's never too late. Definitely check that out. Again, it's probably a lot of the stuff we talked about today, but again, probably more detail and everything. Definitely check that out. Well, Susan, really appreciate your time. It was awesome to, get to chat, hear about your story, some things that have been helpful for you. I think people will take a ton away from this episode. Is there anything that's coming out on your end soon that you want to let the audience know about? And then where else can they find you at?
yeah. Nothing really definitive on the horizon. I'm getting out and speaking at gyms a little bit more, just talking to that middle-aged population because that's a huge population in the industry right now, as you know. But other than that, nothing, really big per se, coming out. You can find me mostly on Instagram, Susan Niebergall Fitness. And I also have a YouTube channel with lots of resources over there. And everything is Susan Niebergall Fitness wherever I appear. So
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, getting out, like you said, speaking. And do you coach and everything as well too, correct? Like you still take on
yeah. So
clients and everything
I'm
like
not
that.
doing one-on-one coaching right now because I'm all full-time in the inner circle. I'm a partner with Jordan now in the inner circle. We've been working the inner circle together now for, gosh, maybe 8 years, something like that. So that's the full-time coaching. And that's actually a great place for middle-aged women because a lot of our clients in there are in this age group. So there's lots of support, a lot of people in there all kind of doing the same thing and they're at the same point in life. So it's actually a really good spot. But yeah, just inner circle right now.
Awesome, cool. Well, all that stuff will be in the show notes. Again, Susan, really appreciate your time. And a ton of great information here, and we'll chat with you next.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great.